We got several different stories to cover, guys, from outside the UK. It's time for another episode of the World's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of the World's Newsround, where I cover various stories from outside the UK, all in one video for you guys, roughly about an hour or more or so long. And the date and time of this recording is the 14th of May. I almost said March there. 14th of May at 8:22 a.m. UK time, just for reference. And we start here with the Association Press of Michael Cohen is to face the bruising cross-examination by Trump's lawyers. So Michael Cohen, those who don't know, had his testimony on Monday with regards to his first testimony. The next one, obviously, is going to be the cross-examination by Trump's lawyers today. But let's read a little bit of what was had to say for those, just to add a bit of context here. This video here from the Associated Press before we read more into it.
Donald Trump's former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen finished his first day on the witness stand at the former president's criminal trial by implicating him in the repayment scheme at the heart of this case. Cohen says that Donald Trump signed off on a plan to repay Cohen for the $130,000 hush money payment he made to porn actor Stormy Daniels, and also other money that he was owed. Now, prosecutors say that Trump and Trump's executives logged those payments to Cohen as legal expenses. But Cohen, in his testimony, said that there was no retainer agreement, and that after he left the Trump organization when Trump became president in 2017, he was no longer being compensated by the company or by Trump. Therefore, any mention of a retainer agreement was bogus.
And yeah, well, if you're going to stop paying him for his part in it after he's long gone, yeah, that kind of plays a factor into this. But it'll be interesting to hear how they how the cross examination will come across on that. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to hear back on it. That's for sure. I really wish a part of me does wish actually the trial that you could actually watch the cases in person on camera, but they don't allow any cameras in the courtroom, which is a bit of a shame. So we have to go by what people are telling us in the courtroom and what they hear for us to know the full picture. But yeah, Michael Cohen's cross-examination is going to be fascinating to hear, to say the least.
Now, Cohen is the key, the linchpin of the entire case. And it is ultimately, in a lot of ways, going to be his word against Trump. So far in this confrontation in court, there haven't been the fireworks you might expect from seeing Trump and his former lawyer turned foe face to face. But that could change because Cohen has not yet been questioned by Trump's lawyers. Cohen returns to the witness stand on Tuesday. He faces more questioning from prosecutors, but then it will be the defense's turn, and the drama could be turned up.
It is going to be turned up, that's for sure. I mean, the heat is going to be quite... I do expect the heat to be turned up. I mean, I wonder if Donald Trump is going to keep his mouth shut throughout of it as well. Make no mistake about it, Michael Cohen is a snake in itself, you know, for his part in all of this as well. He's just as much as a snake, but he's going to do everything he can to bring down Trump, yeah, for basically damaging his career. Never mind just what his own career has caused and him. So it's going to be fascinating for sure, guys. So let's read a bit more into it. So Donald Trump's fixer Turner foe awaits a bruising round of questioning from the former president's lawyers on Tuesday, that's today, after testimony that linked the celebrity client to all aspects of hush money schemes that prosecutors say was aimed at stifling stories that threatened his 2016 campaign. Michael Cohen returned to the stand today as the prosecutor's star witness, where a day earlier he delivered matter-of-fact testimony that went to the heart of the former president's trial. Everything required, Mr. Trump signed off, Cohen said. Let's be very clear that I'm pretty confident that in this part here that Cohen would not have done anything without Trump's approval in any way, shape, or form. But we also, I'm pulling out a stretch here because this is Michael Cohen we're talking about. He placed Trump at the center of the hush money scheme, saying he had promised to reimburse money the lawyer had fronted for the payment and was consistently appraised of behind-the-scenes efforts to bury stories feared to be harmful to the campaign. We need to stop this getting out, Cohen quoted Trump telling him in a reference to the porn star Stormy Actor's accounts of sexual encounter with Trump a decade earlier. The then candidate was especially anxious about how the story would affect his standing with female voters. Yeah, Cohen did his part. He did what Trump would ask him to. And he was promised money back and just wasn't given it, was he? A similar episode occurred when Cohen alerted Trump that a Playboy model was alleging that she and Trump had an extramarital affair. Make sure it doesn't get released, was Cohen's message to Trump. The lawyer says the woman, Karen McDonald, was paid $150,000 in an arrangement that was made after Trump received a complete and total update on everything that transpired. What I was doing at the direction and benefit of Mr. Trump, Cohen testified. This is a drawing of what it looked like in there as he was giving his statement. Trump had pleaded not guilty and had denied both sexual encounters. Cohen is by far the prosecution's most important witness, and though his testimony lacked the electricity that defines Daniel's turn on the stand, he nonetheless linked Trump directly to the payments that helped eliminate some of the drier evidence, such as text messages and phone logs that jurors had already seen. The testimony of a witness with such intimate knowledge of Trump's activities could heighten the legal exposure of the presumptuous Republican presidential nominee if jurors deemed him sufficiently credible. But prosecutors rely on a witness with such a checkered past. Cohen pleaded guilty to federal charges related to the payments, also carries sizable risk with a jury that could be a boon to Trump politically as he fundraises off his legal woes and paints the case as a product of a tainted criminal justice system. The men, once so close to Cohen, boasted that he would take a bullet for Trump. There had no visible interaction inside the courtroom. The sedated atmosphere was in marked contrast to the last courtroom face-off in October, when Trump walked out of the courtroom after his lawyer finished questioning Cohen during his civil fraud trial. This time around, Trump sat at the defense table with his eyes closed for long stretches of testimony as Cohen recounted his decade-long career as a senior Trump organization executive. Doing work by his own admission sometimes involved lying and bullying others on his boss's behalf. Trump's lawyers will get the chance to begin questioning Cohen as early as Tuesday, where they expected to attack his credibility, where he disembarked, went to prison, and separately pleaded guilty to lying about a Moscow real estate project on Trump's behalf, and cast him as a vindicate, agenda-driven witness. The defense told jurors during opening statements that he is an admitted liar with an obsession to get President Trump. Prosecutors aim to blunt those attacks by acknowledging Cohen's past crimes to jurors and by relying on other witnesses whose accounts they hope will buttress his testimony. Jurors had previously heard from other stories about the tabloid industry practice of catch and kill, in which rights to a story are purchased so that they can be quashed. But Cohen's testimony is crucial to prosecutors because of his direct communication with the then candidate about embarrassing stories that he was scrambling to suppress. Cohen also matters because the reimbursement he received from $130,000 hush money payments to Daniels, which prosecutors said was meant that he bide her silence in advance of the election, formed the basis of 34 felony courts charging Trump with falsifying business records. Prosecutors say the reimbursement were flogged falsely as legal expenses to conceal the payment's true purpose. To establish Trump's intimate familiarities with the payment, Cohen told jurors under questioning that Trump had promised to reimburse them. The two men even discussed with Alan Weisenberg, a former Trump Organization chief financial officer, how the reimbursement would be paid as legal services over monthly installments, Cohen testified. He said Trump would even sought to delay finalizing the Daniels transaction until after Election Day so that he wouldn't have to pay her. Because, Cohen testified, after the election, it wouldn't matter to Trump. Cohen also gave jurors an insider account of his negotiation with David Pecker, the then publisher of the National Enquirer, who was just as close to Trump's ally that Pecker told Cohen that his publication material, a file drawer or a locker drawer, where files related to Trump were kept, an effort that took on added urgency following the October 2016 disclosure of an Access Hollywood recording in which Trump was heard boasting about grabbing women sexually. Yeah, we know that quotation he allegedly said. So yeah, there he is once again giving his testimony, and yeah, it looks like Trump's just it's interesting sketches. Obviously, you got the judge there, And then they said Trump was kind of closing his eyes and whatnot there, but interesting sketch of it all. The Daniel payment was finalized several weeks after that revelation, but Monday's testimony also centered on a deal earlier that fell with McDonnell. To lay the foundations that the deals were done with Trump's endorsement, prosecutors' elegant testimony from Cohen's designed to show Trump as a hands-on manager acting on Trump's behalf. Cohen said he sometimes lied and bullied others, including reporters. When he would task you with something, he would say, "Keep me informed, let me know what's going on," Cohen testified. He said it was especially true if there was a matter that was troubling to him. Interesting so far, guys. Yeah, there is going to be a little bit spicy, the cross-examination, without a doubt. It will be very spicy. Part of me is kind of hoping Trump will kind of just lose his rag a little bit. But a part of me is thinking, well, he's more concerned about not going to try to avoid anything to avoid going in prison, because he's been warned several times by judges as well. So he's going to be in damning one way or the other today. He's going to be in damning for him what the cross-examination, that's for sure. But yeah, I expect a few fireworks, I think, for sure, guys. But I'll try and keep an eye on it as best as I possibly can. But obviously, if you want to keep up to date, you can always check out David Pakman, David Pakman, and also Brian Tyler Cohen, two YouTubers who cover American politics. Brian Tyler Cohen is one I follow quite a lot, with regards to this stuff. So you can check out them. There's a couple of others obviously out there you can check out as well. But I'll try and keep up to date with short videos, and if I can, I'll probably do a video as well on Friday with the Snowflakes Corner as well for you guys. So this next one I've got is from CNN. We're going all the way to Asia with this one. So this is about a Chinese journalist. So the headline is, a Chinese journalist imprisoned for her COVID reporting is due to be released after 4 years, but will she be freed? So it's basically a journalist pretty much essentially doing her job, and at least that's our understanding of this. And the question is she finally going to be let out after this? So let's read a bit more into this to get our heads a bit around this. So Chinese citizen journalist Zhang Zheng, if I mispronounced the name, I apologize, was sentenced to 4 years in prison for reporting on the initial COVID outbreak in Wuhan. So a Chinese citizen journalist who has been behind bars for 4 years over reporting on the initial COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan is due to be released Monday after serving a sentence, according to supporters in a court verdict. So Zhang Zheng, a former lawyer, was one of the few independent Chinese journalists reporting in Wuhan after the metropolis of 11 million people went into complete lockdown, offering a rare, unfiltered glimpse into reality on the ground as Chinese authorities imposed tight censorship on media coverage. She was detained in May 2020 and sentenced months later for 4 years in prison for picking quarrels and provoking trouble, a charge commonly used by the Chinese government to target dissidents and human rights activists. Yeah, so if you give any kind of real accountability of what's going on, this is what the charge they can put on you. The problem is and in China, obviously, you don't really have, there's nothing really you can do about it. So yeah, you got to be very careful, obviously. But she was doing her job. She that's the problem. Zhang is due to finish her sentence on Monday, according to the court verdict on her case, obtained and published by human rights groups. And supporters and right groups have called on the Chinese government to free Zhang on schedule. So far, I've not received any confirmation that Zhang Zheng has left the prison and is home with her family. We are still waiting, said Jane Wang, a UK-based advocate for the Free Zhang Zheng campaign. I understand that her parents and brother have been under enormous pressure and warned severely not to give media interviews. Friends' calls are also left without answers. This is extremely worrying sign, she added. Reporters Without Borders, RSF, was awarded Zhang its Free Press Freedom Award in 2021 and called on the international community to put pressure on the authorities to ensure her unconditional release on Monday in a post on social media platform X. This was last Friday. In February 2020, just days after Wuhan went into lockdown, Zhang travelled to some 400 miles from Shanghai to the central Chinese city to report on the spread of virus and subsequent attempts to contain it, just as authorities tightened censorship on state-run and private Chinese media. For more than 3 months, she had documented snippets of life under lockdown in Wuhan and the harsh reality faced by its residents, from overflowing hospitals to empty shops, as the world braced for the spread of the virus. She posts observations, photos, and videos on WeChat, Twitter, and YouTube. The two later, which are blocked in China. I can't find anything to say because everything is covered up. This is the problem this country is facing now. Any opposing opinions just might make us dismiss us as rumours, she said in a video every 2 weeks after arriving in Wuhan, donning a face mask. Even our own voices are out of our control. They imprison us in the name of pandemic prevention and restrict our freedom. If we cannot obtain the truth, if we cannot break their monopoly of the truth, the world will be meaningless to us. Her post came to an abrupt stop in mid-May, as she was later revealed to have been detained by police and brought back to Shanghai. The Chinese Foreign Ministry declined to confirm whether Zhang had been released from prison at a regular news conference on Monday afternoon. I don't know the relevant information, but what I can tell you is that China is a country governed by the rule of law. Anyone who violates that law should be punished by law, said the ministry spokesperson Wang Weibin. At that time, China fully protects the legal rights of defendants and prisoners in accordance with the law, he added. Human rights advocates have long worked on China. Say Zhang is likely to live under close surveillance from authorities even if she does walk out of prison. While Zhang is released from prison, it won't mean she will be freed, said Yongyi Wang, the research director at Chinese advocacy group of Freedom House. If the Chinese government passed records of any indication, she will face continued harassment and surveillance by authorities. But if Zhang Xing's past actions or any interactions, she will keep fighting efforts to silence her. Sarah Brooks, Amnesty International's China's director, said she was concerned that Zhang's ability to travel to make contact with relatives and others, especially those outside China, may be severely restricted. Zhang Xing should never have been jailed in the first place. Now, having served her time, our hopes is that her and her family have a safe reunion and road back to health. And if she chooses her important human rights work, she said. The Chinese government's jailing of Zhang Xing has been a shameful assault on her human rights, and her release must mark a new beginning. Supporters and rights groups are also concerned about Zhang's access to medical treatment upon her release, given her poor health condition while in prison. The 40-year-old has been on multiple hunger strikes since being detained and was briefly hospitalized in 2021. Zhang's mother said her daughter was so frail that she could not hold her head up for a lack of strength and was in desperate need of medical care. During the hunger strike, Amnesty International alleged Zhang was shackled and force-fed. Treatment, the group said, amount to torture. Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs did not previously respond to CNN on allegations of Zhang's mistreatment in detention. In a lengthy statement issued on July 2020, the Foreign Ministry denied the Chinese government had cracked down on journalists who exercised their rights for freedom of speech on the internet during the pandemic. Yeah, the problem is we had to take China's word for it during that time, because unless it was state media control, we could only take what the government was telling us at the time. In China, no one gets punished or penalized simply because of making remarks, the statement said. The Chinese government has all along conducted its COVID-19 response in an open and transparent manner and has made widely recognized achievements. Zhang was a number of independent reporters who were detained or disappeared during the outset of the pandemic as Chinese authorities clamped down on coverage of the virus and propaganda outlets that went into overdrive, portraying Beijing's response as effective, efficient and timely. China was the biggest jailer of journalists in the world, according to Reporters Without Borders. It ranks just 172 out of 180 around the world in its annual Press Freedom Index. Authorities tightly control the press at home while blocking the most foreign media outlets via the Great Firewall, its vast online censorship and surveillance apparatus. Yeah, at the time of this recording, I've not seen an update to this, sadly, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say she's probably still in prison, and China have, despite whatever the world is saying and pressure and whatnot, they can hold her for as long as they want. I hope the torture thing is not true. I hope that's not true in any way, shape or form. It'd be very upsetting if that was the case. But yeah, it is huge risks being an independent Chinese journalist in China in any way, shape, independent. Unless you are working with the government, you are painting a target on your back, and I really do commend her and any other independent journalists working in China. I really do, because it is super dangerous. Because if you say the wrong things or whatnot, you can just get thrown in prison just for the sake of it. I would say there's very little of them, but she wanted to tell people what was going on, and I say good on her for doing that. And I honestly don't know why like looking back on that. I don't know why China was so keen not for people just to say what was happening with COVID. We know it was out of control, and we know that China was struggling to get it contained and whatnot. So I don't see why not being what was the absolute what was the reason for punishing this woman for basically just reporting what she was seeing. Yeah, so it's a frustrating one to say the least, guys. Just so you know, the gang is here on the show. Ollie, Pingu, and Cash Dummy. They're all here. The Orb and the Lava Lamp is here, guys. So if you were looking for them, they are here. And we'll come back to them later on in the show, guys, just in case anyone's asking. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. And share this across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. Just doing all of those, one of those two things, or doing all of those things, makes a massive difference and helps support the channel. So if you do one of those things, if you do two of those things, or if you do all three of those things, thank you very much. It really does mean the world. So thank you for everyone who does. So this next one, guys, is from Middle Eastern Eye. It's more... Oh, it's not. I just need to adjust it. So this one is about the war in Gaza, but it's more about what's happening in the US, the US establishment. It's an interesting piece here from them. So Admiral Aki on the wars on Gaza, the US establishment is detached from reality. As public anger grows over Israel's assault on the Palestinian people, government officials and mainstream media are desperately trying to control the narrative. This is definitely what this is. So we've talked about this already, but talked about it in the past. Excuse me. And I'm gonna we're going to say a little bit plus more on this one. So, you know, it's really important that the most truthful and accurate information when it comes to reporting any such media and stories is as much as fair as it possibly can. Obviously, you have people on the far on the left and on the right, obviously trying to give. They have agendas of their own. Not gonna lie, I would say that I'm more left wing than right wing. I would say left centre. If you really want to put me in a box and call me one of them, I consider myself a guy with an opinion, but. That's just here and there, but some media outlets and whatnot have vended interest in rather than the opinionated of wanting to give truthful and honest information. That is sadly the case. A lot of misinformation, disinformation is out there as well. So it's always hard to know for sure what is and what isn't true. But what is the case is that the vast majority of media is the vast majority of reporting that comes out of of Gaza, and I've seen them on Twitter, I've seen them on other social medias of the atrocities that are being occurred with inside Gaza, and this idea that that it's not as bad as it seems, or they're trying to play it down as it's not the end of the world, and that it's okay, and it's not okay. It does infuriate me that what's happening in the likes of Sudan, for example, are not getting the same media coverage. That does really infuriate me when I think about it. But here in particular, the US has a very, very strong relationship with Israel. We're fully aware of that. And the US wants to keep that relationship. They don't want to strain it in any way, shape, or form. However, the problem is that Israel are refusing to listen to the rest of the world. And the West are allowing Israel to do what they're doing. Now, as I said this before, and I said this again, we all condemn the horrific attack that occurred by Hamas on October the 7th. But this is about what's happened since then to up to now. And what's happened from since then up to now, ever since Israel went inside the Gaza Strip, they have literally destroyed pretty much 90% of people's homes, livelihoods. They've cut off water and electricity within the Gaza Strip. They've literally ripped whatever heart and soul of the Gaza Strip that's been left. People have been starving, dying of water and famine because not enough aid is being allowed into the Gaza Strip because of Israel. This has been reported on many occasions. This is not just my words. It's been reported on many media outlets by many journalists, and there's been video footage that verify this as well. There have been Israel Defense Forces that have shot innocent Palestinians. There has been footage of that's been seen. We have seen the the blood and devastation on some of children. More than 11,000 women and children have died as a result of being in there as well, and we've seen the footage. And you see some of the destruction of lives has been caused. Now, Israel's argument is obviously that they are just saying that there are casualties of war. And yes, there are casualties of war, but we know this ain't the right way to go about it. We also know that Israel are being extremely ruthless with their handling of how they're treating this whole situation, and they're more than happy to just wipe Gaza off the face of the earth and take the land for themselves. That's the analysis and the premise that comes across it. So the US really are looking really, really bad, and Joe Biden is looking really bad. While he is, obviously, there was a story, obviously, of him like halting certain weapon supplies and whatnot to Israel. Doesn't change a damn thing. US needs to do more to apply pressure on Israel. It's not doing enough in any way, shape, or form. Should be listening to its Western allies. Should be listening more to America, but that's clearly not the case. So the question is, what is America going to do? Because clearly, the problem here is that the US don't want to upset their relationship with Israel, while at the same time allowing Israel to get away with what they're doing. And this is what's causing a lot of anger among people in the US, because it goes against democracy. It goes against basic human rights. Like the premise is obviously is that the US are allowing Israel to do what they're doing, and it's not in any way, shape, or form morally right. And this is the crux of it. And the US don't want to paint this picture at all. But that is the sheer reality. That is the reality. And the US are trying to break this, are trying to stop this. What they don't want is they don't want American people to have this, don't want this relationship whatsoever to be strained in any way, shape, or form. That's exactly what's happening. And Benjamin Netanyahu and his government are responsible for this. I think that whoever next government comes in, it will be interesting in Israel specifically. It'll be interesting to see how the relationship is between Israel and US after this war, because it will, at some point, Benjamin Netanyahu is not very popular right now by the public, and they want a general election. That's what the people of Israel want, because they don't like this image that's being painted of their country right now. It doesn't look very nice for them on the world stage. So let's read more into this piece, you guys. So, speaking about the student protests in New York, CNN anchor Casey Hunk said last month, "There's some pretty stunning images coming to us overnight. We also are just learning that this hour that banners have been hung from the hall. They read Heinz Hall and Infinia. Hein is a reference to women who was killed in Gaza. Infinia, of course, is a reference to uprising, violent struggles the Palestinians have had over the years against Israel. Where does one even begin? Someone purporting to be a journalist apparently won't even pretend to make an effort to check on a story that went around the world. When a 5-year-old Palestinian girl, Hein Rabig, called out from a besieged car where several family members had just been killed. As a young girl waiting for help to arrive, 2 Palestinian Red Cross Crescents medics coming to her were also killed by Israeli fire. Hein's last word to emergency services workers over the phone before a volley of bullets were heard were, "The tank is next to us. We are in the car next to the tank." CNN later tweeted that Hunt misspoke and corrected herself on the show immediately after. As for Indefika, the iconic figures of the first Indefra launched in December 1987 after an Israeli vehicle hit and killed 4 Palestinians in Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp, were those of boys and young men armed with rocks and slingshots facing down Israeli tanks, snipers and bulldozers. The second Indefra, which began in September 2000, was accompanied by another iconic image, that of a father, Jamal al-Dura, clutching his 12-year-old son as he attempts to shield him from Israeli gunfire. The boy was hit and died soon afterwards. More than 10,000 children were wounded during the second Infinia, and nearly 5,000 Palestinians of all ages were killed, and Dura has lost more family members since Israel declared war on Gaza last October. But apparently violence is only something committed against Israel, while Palestinians mostly die rather than killed, according to the varieties of Western mainstream media think tanks. Yeah, and this is the problem. The Western media don't that whenever any kind of loss of life on Israel, it's a massive outcry of terrible shame. But when it comes to Palestinians, it's a very different context. It's clearly biased by a lot of mainstream media on this story. On the same CNN segment, New York journalist Evans Onos told Hunt that there was an interesting moment last week. You were beginning to see university administrators come to an idea, a principle. You saw the president of Princeton said that the goal should be at the maximum expression without intimidation or obstruction. This is something else because Jewish students on campuses at Columbia are going to wake up this morning and say that this does not satisfy that standard. Even though many campus protesters are themselves Jewish, those comments suggest that Jewish students are only those whose harm is caused by pro-Palestinian demonstrators, not those who are outraged by Zionist manipulation and the instrumentation of their very identity and history in order to carry out a genocide. This is not even to mention the anger and disappointment many people see as the university presidents and government officials carry on fully armed police to protect policies of a foreign government rather than the rights of US citizens. Such grotesque twistly of reality does not take place in a vacuum, but rather infects every nook and cranny of US propaganda, the mainstream rhetoric, imagination culture, and industrial norms, as more aspects of public life face a relentless assault by corporate and government power. The irony is that this has taken place, and this is truly ignominious Anti-Semitism Awareness Act has been passed by the US House of Representatives to put another nail in the coffin of the First Amendment. More Americans than ever are aware of the atrocities being committed by Palestinians in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. Perhaps more importantly, they understand the atrocities are paid for by US tax dollars and are fully supported by a political class that will give up any precedence for representing its constituents. The desperate attempt to expand the definition of anti-Semitism in the US and Europe while imposing a new legal code to prevent scrutiny of Israelis' actions. It's a large-scale effort by Western powers and use their representatives to maintain control over the narrative. But as they've abandoned their constituents IOCs are abandoning them. As the sitting US president mumbles a warning for Israel not to invade Hafka instead of Rafka, goes on about an uncle who was allegedly eaten by cannibals during the Second World War. An increasing portion of the US ruling class, from university presidents to mainstream journalists, find themselves in the position that Joe Biden was in as a candidate hunkered down in the bunker as a public contempt rises. This disappearance of almost any stable reference points to the public sphere is truly a kind of precarious moment in the life of a nation. It seems like harbouring some kind of dystopian totalitarianism, with many aspects of which are already present. While all states and corporate powers remain focused on furthering fragmenting and demonising the populace, keeping everyone at each other's throats and inventing new class of victims, we can only hope that some glimmer of human comedy will finally emerge before the century is plunged into catastrophic spiral of killing and destruction like that of a previous century. Much depends on whether Israel can be stopped. It is the US that holds almost all the leverage. It is where the more pressure may be placed. But whether it will be or not, whether they will choose, but it's a case at the end of the day, guys, it's a choice by the US. And the US government are choosing to say to people, bugger off, basically. And that's essentially how I feel when talking about it, because they don't want this perception being created of Israel, and they'll do everything. But the thing is, the internet is the wild, wild west. You can't silence the internet. And I'm sure if the American government had it their way, they would shut down X as well. They would clamp down on Elon Musk and X, because a lot of footage gets leaked onto X, not just TikTok and other social media, but I see a lot of it released on there, and I'm sure that if the US could, if Israel could, they would silence this. They would silence the wild west of the media for people to see what's actually going on. I just, for me, I know there's long history between the two. I understand the history. I really do. This is not just about what happened on October the 7th. This has been going on before that. What's been happening within the West Bank as well. I know there's a long history, guys. I'm fully aware there's long history here. And there's certainly a lot of hatred on both sides for each other. I'm fully aware of that. But Israel what they've been doing has been nothing short of atrocious, and social media has highlighted, the internet has highlighted this, the atrocities that Israel have been causing on Palestinian people, and it is inhumane what they have done. It is inhumane, and there's no giving away about it. So to them to try and paint themselves as like they are the good guys in this, it's not a very good image of painting yourselves as good guys when you're treating people less than second-class citizens, because that's essentially how you're treating Palestinians. You're treating them less than even dogs, some of them, which is pretty despicable to say the least. And this is not what the majority of Israeli people are, in my opinion. They're not like this. They're not this cold-hearted. They're really not. But this government is training Israeli people's minds to believe that. And it needs to be called out wherever it possibly can. So guys, we're going to take a little break here just to break things up from that story. We've got quite a few more to cover here on the World's Newsround. So this funny video, just to kind of break the ice a little bit here. This one is from Foil and Arms. I hope you guys enjoyed this little bit of a breakaway from it. It's called Car Insurance Rage. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Oh, why did I press that button? I pressed the wrong button. Apologies.
Hi, I got my car insurance renewal quote and it's gone up for the 5th year in a row.
Our underwriters carry out extensive statistical analysis to assess risk based on age, driving experience, vehicle mileage, and a number of other determining factors. Policies can rise as well as fall.
I'm a pretty loyal customer, so is there anything you can do?
Can we start with your name, please?
It's Malcolm Clark.
Okay, that's costing you there.
My name?
According to our data, Malcolms are 2.4 times more likely to be involved in an accident.
It's just a name.
It's what the data says.
Well, can you try Mal?
That has actually brought it up slightly.
What about Brian? My middle name is Brian.
Brian with an I or Brian with a Y?
What difference would that make?
Around €500.
You know, what if I changed my name?
Sorry?
Is there any name I could use that, you know, might bring down the premium?
Philomena.
Philomena.
Philomenas are 15% less likely to have been involved in an accident in the previous year. Do you want me to change that over to Philomena?
Why not?
Is your date of birth still the 24th of the 8th, 1985?
Yes, it hasn't changed.
Okay, that's affecting your premium.
My age or something.
No, it's the month. Virgos are 2.3 times more likely to be involved in a road traffic accident. They're also slow to change, reluctant to let love into their life, and shy to trust.
Maybe there'll be a tall, dark stranger in my future that'll come and pay my fucking car insurance.
According to our system, you are living in Biddenstown.
Yes.
Okay, well, you could make a significant saving if you move to a more affluent area.
If I was to move house to a more expensive house, that would save money?
Yes, correct.
I'll do it this afternoon.
Any changes to the policy must be informed to the policyholder within 30 days or the policy is void.
No problem.
Will it be parked on or off street?
On street.
€25 extra.
Fine. Off street then.
Off street is an extra €25.
Right, so it doesn't matter where I park it then, the premium just goes up.
Also, being a member of a club or society can reduce your premium.
Yeah, I'm a member of a football club and a golf club, whatever difference that makes.
Fortunately, they have both increased your policy.
Do you know what I forgot? I'm also a member of the Murdering Satanist Society. Yeah, we meet every full moon and we sacrifice an insurance worker.
That has actually reduced your policy.
Murdering Satanists.
Statistically very safe drivers.
Are they?
Did you ever wet the bed as a child?
What?
Yes or no answer.
Yes. I'm not sure.
History of accidents.
Hang on, what does that have to do with anything?
In total, that is coming to €847. That is a total saving of
€1.
€1.
And is that fully comp?
Yes, that is fully incomprehensible insurance.
Sorry, what? Incomprehensible?
Yes, it means in the event of a claim, you won't understand why we haven't paid out. It'll be
incomprehensible.
Comprehensible.
Right.
Okay, well, I put that through for you now, Philomena.
Thank God I don't own a car. I know some people say I should own a car, I should get my driving license, but man, oh man, if that's what you have to do to get car insurance, yeah, count me out, guys. Count me out. That's way too much for me. I think we needed that, don't we, guys? Yeah, I think we needed that after that. That was quite a lot to endure, but Ollie, get on the oar properly. What's the matter with you? Can't sit on it properly. Weirdo. But yeah, the gang is still here. They're doing all right. Obviously they're not so keen on the last story. Pingu really liked the story on the China journalist. Obviously, understandably, we know why. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that Foil in Arms one from their YouTube channel, Foil in Arms. Make sure you go and subscribe to their channel, like, share, and all that stuff, guys. It really does greatly appreciate it. But just before I go to the next article, guys, if you haven't already, consider you can financially support me and the work that I do here. You can support me, Pingu, Cash Dummy, and Ollie there behind me, and hail the lava lamp and the orb by becoming a YouTube member. You can be one for as little as 99p. Being a 99p membership gets you access to custom emojis, which you can use on premiere videos or on the live streams whenever I do them. Also, as a member, YouTube member, if you comment on any of my videos, you will get a response from me. Sometimes it'll take a couple of days for me to respond, but I normally respond to all my comments from members here on YouTube. So and if you're a $2.99 member, you get early access to my content. So whenever I create videos and get them uploaded, just need to give them a bit of monetization time. They'll become available for shorts and videos. They'll come before you as $2.99 members. You get them before they come out to become public. So thank you to everyone who is a YouTube member. We greatly appreciate it. Other ways you can support me financially, guys. If you don't want to do it via that way, you can do it by buying me a coffee. The link is in the description if you want to do that as well. I get a bigger cut there. I also get a bigger cut if you become a Patreon supporter. By being a Patreon supporter, you guys, you also get access to exclusive content on there, and also on Patreon, Rumble, and Facebook, where you can get free content on those platforms as well. So you get additional content for them. I do extra additional world news on Rumble. You can check out, as well as I do additional UK news on Facebook and on Patreon. I've got quite a lot dropping this week actually for content on those platforms. So do check out those platforms if you can get access for them if you want to see more from me. So thank you all very much, for your support. It is greatly appreciated. So the next story I've got for you guys is from Byline Times, and this is one that we've talked a little bit about in the past before, but it's obviously looks like things are likely to. This is more likely to happen the more time passes, I'm afraid. So cracks in the crackdown, pressure mounts on the Georgian dream. Amid massive public protests and deepening international pressure, the ruling Georgian Dream Party said it may be willing to negotiate the controversial Russian law. So what is the controversial Russian law, for those who don't know? So basically they want to introduce more draconian Russian laws into Georgia, and they want to take the country away from Western ideologies, from EU ideologies, and draw it more closer ties to Russia. However, the people are not too keen about this, and a part of this law involves suppressing foreign media from being in. So it's just the media being controlled by the state pretty much. So this is obviously leading them down a dark path away from any kind of democracy. This pretty much is a case of either if they want to save democracy, they have to stop this bill from coming through. Now it says here that they may willing to negotiate. The only negotiation I think that the public want is dropping it. And if you can see by this picture here, like it's quite a crowd here that they have. Here, demonstrators hold up their smartphones with torchlights switched on during the protest rally against the Russian law in T-bills. This was on the 11th of May, so it's only a couple of days ago as well. But yeah, they want this bill dropped, that is for sure. So Georgians woke up this morning to a grim reports of further beatings in Tiskbili overnight. Protesters have remained outside the parliament of Rossky Avenue, where security has literally welded shut the iron outer gates to block ruling party MPs today from participating in the latest pending reading of their controversial Russian-style law on foreign influence. As dawn broke over the city, several exhausted and rain-soaked demonstrators were dragged behind a police line and slung to the floor to be punched, kicked, and similarly arrested. Around 9 a.m, the Legal Affairs Committee, who had been smuggled into the building and sometimes earlier, approved the bill in a session that lasted just over 60 seconds. Last week, amidst massive demonstrations and mounting international outcry, the Georgian government launched a full-scale crackdown on opposition voices in a vicious campaign that for many described the trauma of a state terror before the South Caucasus country's independence from the Soviet Union. At least a dozen high-profile government critics have been savagely attacked by police and security forces, either at rallies or outside their homes in front of their families. Hundreds more have received menacing anonymous phone calls and even death threats, while Tiskbili remains plastered with posters denouncing various opposition figures as traitors and enemies of the state. The ruling Georgian Dream Party proposed law, which today will almost certainly pass its third collective reading in Parliament, comprises a set of draconian provisions to impose on media and NGOs who receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad. The bill's critics say these represent an analogue of measures used by the Kremlin to crush domestic opponents of Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine ahead of a guaranteed presidential veto sometime next week, which will simply see the bill sent back to the House for its final review. The European Union has warned that if passed in its current form, the law will all but scupper Georgia's chances of one day joining the bloc, supported up to by 90% of the vote in public. At the heart of its unrest sides Blazin Ashkovich, if I mispronounced the name, I apologise, the ruling party's oligarch founder, who made his fortune in Moscow during the 1990s amid the conflict in Ukraine. Ivanovich has faced up repeated calls from US and EU officials to be targeted with sanctions for his long-standing ties to powerful Russian figures, as well as for the increasing anti-Western track assumed by his government since the war began. And that's him there for those who want to know. Byline Times has previously spoken to several sources with access to the oligarch's inner circle, who said Ivanovich believes that he's already the victim of Western conspiracy against his finances. The foreign influence law, they add, is likely designed to shield his interests from watchdog scrutiny ahead of potentially transferring his offshore assets into Georgia, so as to protect his vast wealth from any future actions by the US and EU. So if government crackdown was designed to cow protesters into submission, the plan has spectacularly backfired. Far from withering under a rally on Saturday night arguably marked the largest public action in Georgia since the Rose Revolution of 2003. With some estimates putting the number of attendees in almost 500,000, that's roughly 15% of the country's total population. International pressure has also intensified. We are deeply alarmed about democratic backsliding in Georgia, where parliamentarians face a critical choice whether to support the Georgian people's Euro-Atlantic aspirations or pass a Kremlin-style foreign agency law that runs counter to democratic values. Jake Sullivan, a national security advisor to the White House, wrote in response to the sheer-scale demonstration on Saturday. Georgians Dream recent rhetoric, proposed legislation changes and actions go against the aspirations of the Georgian people and designed to isolate Georgians from the United States and Europe. We stand with the Georgian people. James O'Brien, the Assistant US Secretary for the State of Europe and Youth Affairs, is now scheduled to visit Turkey this week. Not that James O'Brien, a different one. Where he is expected to meet with government, opposition and civil society representatives to discuss the bill, which he has condemned along with the violence. Nabar Moscovici, a foreign affairs and security spokesperson for the EU Commission, has similarly said intimidation, threats and physical assaults against civil society activists, politicians and journalists are unacceptable, urging Georgian authorities to ensure that fundamental rights of all citizens are protected and those acts are investigated. Meanwhile, Georgian Dream has seen its first high-profile resignation over the foreign agent's faux law. Gotcha Janevsky quit his post as the country's ambassador to France on May the 9th, going on to deliver a scathing indictment of the party's trajectory in an interview with Le Monde. It is a question of principle and honour a call for the withdrawal of this bill, he told the French newspaper. Today, our European friends criticise us and Moscow compliment us. This is unbearable to me. My country has suffered so much from Russia. I don't see how we can be friends with a country that occupies 20% of our territory. Asked whether he anticipated other Georgian diplomats will follow suit, he said he has not discussed the matter with the colleagues. Most of them are deeply pro-European. I do not exclude that my example will be followed. So, as of Monday morning, however, Jastrzewski remains the only member of Georgia's diplomatic corps to have left his post. It is absolutely shameful that only one person has expressed his concern publicly, said Tamas Godovisky, a former Georgian Dream MP who resigned in 2019 over a lack of action on electoral reform. Diplomats are civil servants. We should be expecting more of them to speak out when it is so obvious the political leadership is changing the foreign policy direction of the country. Having been among a number of former ruling party officials to submit an open letter to Parliament condemning the bill, Chagovsky adds that we're unlikely to see any resignations of elected appointees in future, given the alleged stranglehold of senior Georgian Dream officials over the party's current rank and file. The order comes from the top. If they are told to vote green, they vote green, and if not, they know where their consequences will be for them, she says. There will be some people who are worried on a pragmatic level, but I'd be very surprised if there's anyone left who might be concerned enough on ethnic and moral grounds. A source with compatible experience of working with the party is less convinced. From recent conversations they've had with senior officials, they said there are already indications of growing alarm that the vice ministerial level of the Ministry of Defence and among heads of department of the mayor's office in Tiskbili. Cracks are definitely starting to show. For now, people who remain under control, but give it a week, maybe two, the source explains. I wouldn't underestimate the significance of the ambassador resigning, as Jaworski does have political connections. There's a huge amount of discourse in the civil servants. I've not heard from anyone at the top level who is in support of this. Since Sunday, fake signs have begun to emerge that Georgia's government might be willing to engage with historic partners who have lately found themselves otherwise profoundly snubbed on any discussion perpetrating the bill. Parliament Speaker Shari Pusky said that if Georgia's international partners give acceptable recommendations, the legislative body would consider adhering to the President Sami Zolowiski expected to veto in order to review the bill's provisions. A part of me just feels like that would Russia invade the country again if it was to turn westernized? I am a bit worried on that part as well. I feel like it's all well and good just calling on it to change, but there's so much Russian influence within their politics and their history, and they just want to be able to make their own choose choices and destiny. But instead, the people at the top have been put in by Russian puppets and whatnot want to keep them in check. They will essentially become like Belarus, and the people, and eventually what will happen then after this, as time will pass, they will change the education system to teach them to love Russia, to start speak their language more as if they don't already. They will re-educate the next generation into loving Russia, because that's where the next step will be. To distance themselves further and further from the EU. It really is hanging by a thread right now for them. Barline Times understands that the European External Action Service, the EU's diplomatic corps, is already preparing to take advantage of whether the window presents itself in the coming days. At this stage, such move would likely to encounter significant pushback from MEPs like Pidegis Osvilis in Lithuania, Vas Gretchen in the Netherlands, and Wanda van Krammen in Germany, who've levelled repeated criticism from the EU delegation in Georgia for emboldening autocrats by continuing much of its diplomatic mission these past weeks as if things were business as usual. More importantly, there is also perhaps a 0% chance to build opponents, which is sheer scale and momentum of recent demonstrations behind them, will accept anything less than a wholesale termination of the entire legislation process. Any softening of the law is just window dressing, an attempt to avert protests and possible sanctions by tricking us and our international partners, said Mariga Maskowski, an opposition Droga party representative. It will not calm the regime. This will remain an external threat, and the EU must not take part in its legitimization. Yeah, they have to. If they have to, they have to flag it outright, fling it outright. But whether they be able to is another thing. That's the problem. That's going to be the big challenge for them, and it's a major situation. I honestly don't know if they're going to be able to do that, guys. I really don't know. We will have to wait and see if they'll be able to do it or not. This next one I've got for you guys is from Euronews. This it's a bit more not off the normal kind of stories that I normally cover, but I always wanted to this one kind of like there's been a lot of talk around Eurovision. A lot of things going on around Eurovision. But this one really baffles me. So, completely regrettable. Brussels demands answers over a ban on EU flags at Eurovision. Yes, so anyone who came to Eurovision may not have been aware that the EU flag was banned, apparently. Excuse me. Apologies. Why would you ban the EU flag at Eurovision? It's not there's no politicization whatsoever over the flag. So why has it been banned? So yeah, this is quite shocking. So the European Commission has expressed anger over a ban on EU flags at the Eurovision Song Contest and demands explanations. The allegations made by several spectators who attended the grand final on Saturday were told off for carrying the flags and quickly turned viral and prompted a stern rebut from the Commission Vice President Margaritis Sengis. Eurovision, at first and foremost, is a celebration of European spirit and our European diversity and talent. The EU is less of a symbol of this, Schengen said on X on Saturday evening. Less than a month into the European elections, there should be no obstacles, big or small, to celebrate what unites all Europeans. Absolutely. The EU's executive is now seeking answers from the European Broadcasting Union, the EBU, the Geneva-based Alliance on Public Media, and the organisation of the music celebration. Schengen sent a letter on Monday asking the EBU bosses to explain the rationale behind the ban and attribute responsibility where it is due. It is certainly completely regrettable, said Van Margaard, the Commission's chief spokesperson, on Monday. From our point of view, there's absolutely no reason for this flag to be banned from the venue. This is not an event which is organised by the European Union. We can make our views known. We can certainly encourage the EBU to understand that this was a mistake, and then it is their decision on how to proceed, he added. In a statement to Euronews, the EBU said the flag policy had been agreed with SVT, Swedish broadcaster, the host of this year's contest, but Strettis did not feature an explicit provision that prohibits EU flags. As in previous years, such as 2023, STV's policy was to allow the flags of the participating countries and the rainbow flags. There has never been an express ban on an EU flag in the written policy, an EBU spokesperson said. Due to the heightened geopolitical tensions, the flag policy was more rigorously enforced by security at this year's event. Marder struck back, saying that it was not EBU's role to make statements about the geopolitical situation and the impact that it may or may not have on participants. Yeah, it's not their decision to make. This is like, there's nothing political about the EU flag here. They're choosing you're choosing to politicize it anyway by just not having it there. I would say more, it's exactly the geopolitical situation. It's completely, we must champion our values. That's our freedom, values of freedom, cultural diversity and understanding among people, Myanmar added. I don't think this is the right time to refrain people from expressing their values by flying the European flag, for example. Euronews have reached out to SVT for comment. My apologies. The flag debate comes on the heels of a string of controversies that marred this year's edition, including last-minute expulsion of Josh Gates, the Dutch entry, and the diverse participation of Israel at a time of the war in Gaza. I've said that Israel should not have been a part of it, but then if I say that, then I'm also being political. People will argue I'm being political in this show. But my counter-argument would be, well, Israel's not part of Europe. Same with Australia. Eurovision is for Europe. Israel's not a part of Europe. So that's my counter-argument from a non-political point of view. Journalists who were in My Swim described the atmosphere of tension and chaos on social media. Marcin Oskowski, the contest executive supervisor, was loudly booed during the grand final when he intervened to announce the closing of voting. However, by that time, Nito, the Sweep representative, snatched the trophy. The ambient had become ecstatic as the area chanted chorus of the winning song, "The Code." Yeah, people were really up. People were fuming with the possibility of Israel winning. And I think if Israel had won, it would have been a lot more politicized, which was concerning. The flag of Europe, which is distinct with bucks of blue and 12 yellow stars, was designed in 1955 by the Council of Europe, a human rights organisation with 46 members, and gained further recognition in the 1980s after the EU made it its official symbol. The flag is often displayed in public buildings across 27 member states next to the national flag, with the same degree of visibility. But this year in Eurovision, its presence was contested. Don Frosaktiscu, a policy advisor at the ALDE party who travelled with friends to Myanmar, told Euronews about his experience. "We have approached the arena and while queuing to pass security, he asked me and my friends to show what flags we had. Of course, we showed the EU flag and we had, and the security told us it was not allowed to enter with them. That is a political flag," they would said. So they branded it a political flag, apparently. "We were honestly shocked and appalled. The security guy, however, was very polite and said that unfortunately he couldn't do much. The EBU had given him a picture of all the flags allowed there. Indeed, the EU flag was not there. The group of friends was then asked to surrender the EU flags to be permitted entrance to the venue," they explained. According to the Eurovision rules, spectators can display and wave flags from any participating country as well as the pride flag, considered a symbol of tolerance for diversity. This means, for instance, the prohibition of carrying Palestinian flags. The organisers, though, were previously allowed to exhibit of EU. The organisers, though, previously allowed to exhibit of EU flags, was at this case last year in Liverpool. The banners were clearly visible while Lorraine was making his way to the stage after being declared the winner. On its official website, the EBU said Eurovision is a non-political event and that all delegations and broadcasters need to ensure that the contest shall in no case be politicised or instrumentalised or otherwise be brought into disrepute in any way. The EU flag was not only a symbol under scrutiny. Reports also emerged that fans carrying non-binary flags were told on Saturday to leave them outside. Nemo, who identifies as non-binary, called the allegations unbelievable. I had to smuggle the flag in because Eurovision said no, and I did it anyway, said the press conference after the win. This is clearly a double standard. Maybe Eurovision needs a bit of fixing every now and then, they added. Yeah, I do think, like, I get that they don't want to be politicized. I get that. I get that. You don't want Eurovision to be non-political. I don't watch Eurovision, me personally, right? And I get the premise that they don't want to be political, okay? But there's nothing wrong with having the EU flag. There's nothing political about it. It's a representation of Europe. The European Union is a representation of Europe. That's the flag you associate Europe with. It's that flag. There's nothing political on that count. Yeah, there really isn't. Really, you know, they allow the trans flag. Why would they not allow the non-binary flag? Like, and they're saying it's political there, and I'm like, really? I mean, I don't like it, but I also understand why they banish the Palestinian flag, because obviously they don't want to turn it political, because if they had that flag in there, it would be political, especially when you have Israel as part of Eurovision, which it should not be, in my opinion, because it's not from Europe, being allowed to fly its flags and whatnot. Just having Israel in it makes it politicized in and of itself. I can absolutely tell you that Israel was not a part of Eurovision. There would not be little to no politicalization whatsoever around the competition if Israel was a part of it. Was not a part of it, sorry. If Israel were taken out of the room, you would not have this been blown up in the way it has been. But that's just me. Whether you agree to disagree is up to you guys. So, guys, I'm going to have to... I can't believe I actually missed a story here, actually, on my list here. So, I don't know how I've missed this story, but I need to go back one, actually. There's one here from Al Jazeera that I missed, guys, and it's regarding some Spanish elections. So, Spain's Socialists hail a new era in Catalonia following election wins. So, in endorsement of PM Sanchez's bid to normalise relations, the victory breaks a decade-long majority for the separatists here. So, let's read more into this, guys. So, the governing Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, the PSOE, has won Catalonia's regional parliamentary elections, breaking the majority enjoyed by the pro-independent parties for more than a decade. With the vote count by all finished late on Sunday, it was announced that the Socialists had won 42 of the 135 seats in the regional parliament. The victory represents a vindication of the Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's bid to normalise relations with the restored region. So this is obviously a way for them. So clearly this victory has shown that its Prime Minister and his party and the governing party have really worked hard to try and normalise relations with Catalonia, despite the fact that there are many within Catalonia that still want independence. They want to break away from Spain. They've clearly worked hard to try and improve relations within Catalonia. They've clearly, I'm going to go on a limb and say they probably made concessions as well of some sorts as well. Not so much any kind of referendum on independence or any way, shape or form, but so there's definitely been, without a doubt, there's been some concessions have been made in some way, shape or form to help this as well. But I also think they've been listening to a lot of, I also think that to get these votes, obviously no doubt that they have been talking to people on the ground with how they feel about all this as well. So Sanchez's controversial policy has included handing out pardons for convictions over the failed breakaway bid in 2017, led by Carlos Polos, currently in self-imposed exile in France. Puigdemont centre-right hardline separatist John per Catalana's party, or Together for Catalonia, came second with 35 seats. Fellow separatist party Equitar Republicana de Catalunya, if I mispronounce any of the names, I apologise, the ERC, or the Republican Left of Catalonia will have 20 seats, 13 less than in the last parliament. Combined, the four competing separatist parties took just 61 seats, leaving the independent movement with no chance of retaining their absolute majority. The turnout for the vote was notably at 58%. I'm just going to move it on the list just so I remember where it is now. Spain's largest opposition party, the Conservative People's Party, increased its representation from where they won in the last vote in 2021 to 15. Sorry. However, with the Socialists having increased their number of seats by 9, it is though the party's social leader, Salvador Ali, should be able to put together a left-wing alliance with smaller parties to form a new regional government, albeit with a slim majority. The Socialists could ally with the rational Left Sumator or Commons Unite, which won 6 seats, and the moderate independent ERC, which won 20. Al Jazeera's Sonia Gallego, reporting from Barcelona, said despite the victory, forming a coalition would be a fine balancing act for the Socialists. Speaking as the vote count concluded, Elia hailed a new era for all Catalonians, whatever they think. However, Podemon claimed on Monday that he would seek to form a pro-independence minority government. We can assemble a coherent majority, he told a news conference in the south of France, according to the AFP news agency. Not an absolute one, but a coherent one, bigger than one of the Socialist Party candidate can gather. He added that it may stand as a candidate for leader of a new Catalan regional parliament. I think there are options for being appointed and therefore to announce my intention to apply as a candidate, he said. More than 5.7 million votes were eligibly to choose lawmakers for the regional parliament based in Barcelona. Separatists had held regional governments for more than a decade, but polling and the national election in July showed that support for successions has shrunk since Puigdemont's illegal breakaway bid in 2017. And while it's not the same, this is, while obviously they've been united in their bid to wanting to break away from Spain as time moves on. Obviously, local and domestic issues still matter, and a lot of those kind of things have been kind of put aside to try and push for this. And as time has passed on, and as things, the hopes of them having that breakaway is becoming less and less, is obviously becoming, people still have lives that they want to live, and sometimes those things are not being handled by the current ruling parties that are in charge, which can go what led to them. Now, it's entirely possible, and that the Labour Party in the UK will be looking at this and seeing if they can make similar gains like this in Scotland, but I don't know enough to say whether that will be the case or not. But I do think if anyone does try to make comparisons, that Scotland could make the same things. I think John Sweeney, who's the new SNP leader, I think he will look at, while obviously independence will always be a topic of discussion, their priority will also be making sure that they do what's in the best interest of the Scottish people in order to keep the Conservatives Labour out of any kind of control within the Scottish Parliament and Hollywood. But it'll be interesting to see when the general election in the UK comes how things go there. But that did not prevent him from running in this election. Campaigning from southern France, he had declared that he would return to Spain when newly elected lawmakers convened to choose a regional president after the election. Puigdemont hopes to be cleared of any legal troubles after Spain's parliament approved a contagious amnesty for him and hundreds of other separatists. The amnesty forms part of Sanchez's intense push to reduce tensions in Catalonia since becoming the premier in 2018 following the failed separatist bid. He has sought to heal the wounds caused by unprecedented political crisis. The Socialists under Illa also won the most votes in 2021's regional election, but failed to stop Pana Andres from ERC forming a government. I do wonder whether, Spain are kind of are doing. Obviously, I don't know enough about Spanish politics, but I also think the PM Sanchez has done. You have to give him credit where credit is due, where he has tried to very hard to work to build a relationship with the people in Barcelona, within Catalonia, to re-establish the connections there. Because obviously, since that bid, obviously things have been sour, and trying to work hard to regain the trust of the people. And again, I still stand by the position that there's probably been concessions have been made of some sorts as well that has helped. That has without a doubt helped in that way as well. But we will obviously I'll try and keep an eye on it as best as I possibly can, and we'll how things go there. But it will certainly be interesting to see how things progress there within in Spain. That is for sure. So we'll have to wait and see, obviously. Okay, guys, so this one here, I got this one, a bit of fact checking here from the Kiev Post. So we're going to be talking about the war in Ukraine now. But just as a reminder, guys, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe if you haven't, because it really does help support the channel. Thank you to everyone who has done those. It really does mean a lot. So this one from the Kiev Post is a fact-checking. So serious issues with Kremlin claims that Ukraine blasted Belgorod's apartment buildings. So video evidence and geography argue a lot more for Russian Air Forces dropping a bomb by accident. So they're trying to claim... So what's this about? So basically, Kremlin are trying to claim that they dropped a bomb in a certain place by accident, which is kind of like a bit hypocritical for them to say that. So the Kremlin claimed that a Ukrainian long-range weapon was responsible for a lethal explosion hitting an apartment building in Belgorod. Appeared to lack substantial evidence to back it up, and chances are much higher it was a Russian weapon that did the damage. The Kiev Post fact checks into Sunday's incident found that the governor of Russia's Belgorod Oblast, Governor Vasquez Guskos, told local reporters that a Ukrainian projectile struck a 10-story building in the Belgorod district of Belgorod city. So this is the, you can see the picture there, the damaged building there. Rescue workers and civilians took part in a collapsed section of the apartment building in Belgorod, Russia, in a May 10th image published by Ukraine's Channel 5 television. Official Russian sources claim that a Ukrainian missile caused the damage and killed at least seven residents. So Russia media are claiming this was caused by Ukraine of a missile going in the wrong direction or whatnot. That's what they're claiming. 17 people in the building, 2 of them children, died when a section of the apartment collapsed into rubble, but a search was still in progress to find possible survivors. A statement from Russia's Emergency Situation Ministry said 2 of the dead reportedly were children. Official Kremlin information platforms blamed a damaged Ukrainian Toga U surface-to-surface missile was hit by Russian air defenses and knocked out its probable intended flight path to smash into the buildings and explode, dropping between 10 and 20 apartments with people inside in on themselves. This is a video. I'm not going to play the video. Vladimir Goskos from second left to dark jacket, governor of Russia's western Belgorod Oblast, gestures at warm drinks provided by emergency response vehicles to the victims of explosion hitting the apartment building on May the 12th. Goskos later claimed that the blast killing several civilians was carried out by the Ukrainian military, but he offered no evidence to support the allegations. Kiev Post screen grabbed from the Russian state information outlet Reganelite here. So just adding that context there. So Russia's defense ministry on Sunday claimed that its air defense units operating in Belgorod Oblast shot down 6 Togi U's, a Hulking missile carrying 480 kilograms explosive warheads. Both Russia and Ukraine used the Soviet-designed weapon identified by NATO as SS-21 Scarabs. Dozens of vehicles from the apartment courtyard, including one showing the actual explosion, satellite and map images, and comments by independent analysis reviewed by the Kiev Post, cast at minimum serious doubts on Russia's claim of Ukrainian fault, and many measures disproved them. One of the most compelling material contradictions to the Kremlin narrative of Ukrainian responsibility for the strikes was a security cam video showing an explosion eruption from the bottom or first floor of the apartment block or hurling smoke, fire and debris into the courtyard. Satellite images, so this picture here, this is obviously a satellite image from above here. So you can show the red lines of there. You can see where the missile struck, obviously the point there, which is highlighted in the yellow ping there. So it says satellite images of the Belgorod apartment building damaged on May the 12th and probable directions of incoming munition as per analysis by the German military information outlet Tender. The strike was shown to arrive from the northeast. According to that analysis, the weapon most likely responsible was a blast from an irregular Russian-guided bomb. The direction of the blast shown in the video, geolocated to the apartment location, is 50. That's their coordinations, which is from the northeast to the southwest. In opposition direction is likely the flight path of Ukrainian munitions fired at Belgorod. The Dottiska is a ballistic missile flying at high arc trajectory and scraping the edge of the space before returning to Earth steeply at multiple Mach speed. Models operated by Ukraine are commonly rated to have range between 70 to 120 kilometers, but is more sufficient to hit Belgorod city. But the direction of the explosion shown in the video and damage caused to the building and structure around it is side to side. It's lateral opposite of the typical direction of a ballistic missile coming down its target vertically. Typically, in the Russian-Ukrainian war, even a damaged Tatuska U with a warhead weighing nearly half a ton would create a massive crater whether it was strikes. Dozens of videos, including recorded by Russian official news platforms like Tusk and Reganelite, show substantial damage at the site of the blast, but no crater common to the detonation of the half-ton missile warhead hitting the ground. Not going to play the video there, but this is a Kiev screen grab for security cameras showing the moment of an explosion hitting an apartment building in Belgorod, Russia on May the 12th. The video shows the direction of the explosion to be left to right of the imagery, roughly moving from the northeast towards the southeast. The blaster appears to initiate from the lower stories of the apartment building sections. Some Russian officials claim a Ukrainian missile was responsible. However, typically the missile strikes upon the floors and roofs of the building to hit vertically, not horizontally. So local social media within the 24 hours explosion offered no images or accounts of debris, and most often missiles, fins or engine fragments commonly left on strikes following a Tokiga U hit. Some Russian non-government media, in contrast, published images of debris in what appears to be pieces of Russia's S-300 anti-aircraft missile purposely found at the explosion. The most detailed of these purpose S debris vehicles published in the online newspaper Mashk. Kiev Post researchers include the debris looks amphibious, but it was possible to link indefinitely the debris with a shot strike. So there's some images here of some of the debris. Some buildings adjacent to the explosion show walls peppered with a gouge and holes similar to damage caused by the detonation of a warhead designed to scatter metal fragments. The anti-aircraft warhead of an S-300 missile, loaded with an estimated 500 metal cubes, each weighing about 50 grams, capable of having caused scoring damage. Kiev Post researchers concluded. So you can see a picture there of it claiming it's coming from that way from the screenshot there. The Kiev Post grabs green grab a video news post of the Russian military information war outlet War Gonzo on May the 11th against the restaurant reportedly hosting a holiday party for Russian officers in the Kremlin-occupied city Donetsk. Both Russians and Ukrainian sources said the weapon was a long-range missile, a precision-guided missile, most likely launched by a US-made HIMARS or M20 rocket artillery system. The image shows a powerful blast of high-trajectory weapons striking the building roof and upper floors. Reportedly, 4 Russian officers and 6 restaurant workers died in that strike. So I'm going to leave it there just because of time, because I do want to cover some other Ukrainian stuff, but it's a fact-checking report on basically debunking what Russian media are stating with regards to basically they're trying to propagate that Ukrainians are hitting their own civilians, and well, they're not really. There are unfortunate, like, I don't hear very much reporting of Ukrainians when they hit missiles back or whatever back in Russian-controlled territories. I don't hear much of civilians being hit in any way, shape, or form by Ukraine into Russian-occupied territory. I don't hear very little to none of that. So this is obviously just something that the Kiev Post has posted, obviously to debunk that this is claim. And what they're saying is this is actually a missile that actually came from Russia and not from Ukraine. And there's going to be a lot of misinformation within this conflict either way, guys. So we know there's going to be a lot of disinformation because that's just kind of how things are, unfortunately. So let's just have a quick run through the Kiev Independent for you guys. So the Security Council Secretary, over 30,000 Russian troops involved in the attack on Kharkiv Oblast. So this has been one of the stories that I've covered not too long ago. So more than 30,000 Russian troops are carrying out renewed offensive in Kharkiv Oblast. The National Security and Defense Council Secretary Oleg Ziskovo said in an interview with AFP published on May the 13th. Russian troops launched a new wave of attacks on May the 10th, mainly focusing on border settlements in Kharkiv Oblast. The Ukrainian General Staff said on May the 13th that Russia has tactical success in fights in the fight for Voskis, a town in northwest Kharkiv Oblast. Urban combat was ongoing in the north and outskirts of the town, Gola Oskirsk had said. According to their reports, the military is ready to repel the attacks and is fighting hard, but there are quite a lot of Russians, they have said. In total, Russia deployed around 50,000 soldiers on the border with Kharkiv Oblast before its offensive, he said. There is currently no threat of an assault in the city of Kharkiv, Luchishko added, echoing earlier statements from local authorities. Russian forces failed to take Kharkiv in the first weeks of the full-scale invasion, despite the fact that the city lies less than 30 kilometers from the Russian border. Russia would need years to occupy Kharkiv, Oskar Pisko, the commander of Ukraine's National Guard, said, amid the looming threat of a renewed attack. A total of 7,023 civilians in Kharkiv Oblast have been evacuated from their homes amid the heavy fighting in the region, Socialists had reported as well. So I'm just going to... There's a report here that just general staff and update. Russia has lost 485,430 troops in Ukraine since February 24th, since the full-scale invasion. So these are the numbers that Ukraine get out. I still get attacked by people on YouTube and TikTok and whatnot for posting these numbers, but and they're claiming that these are fake numbers. Well, these are the, if you have a report that has more accurate numbers, please share them with me. But anyway, so Russia has lost 485,000 troops since the full-scale invasion on February 24th, 2022. The General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces has reported today on the 14th of May. This number includes 1,400 casualties Russian forces suffered over the past day. So according to their report, Russia has lost 7,496 tanks, 14,460 armoured fighting vehicles, 16,907 vehicles and fuel tanks, 12,515 artillery systems, 1,070 multiple rocket launch systems, 798 air defence systems, 351 airplanes, 325 helicopters, 9,985 drones, coming up to that 10k mark with drones, 26 boats, ships and boats, and one submarine. Still that one submarine, guys. Still the one submarine. So what else has been happening here? A report here from the governor. 6 children have been brought back from Russia-occupied territory here. Justice for Ukraine, bringing back the stolen children that have been home. So many children have been taken away from parents. It's very heartbreaking, this is. So Save Ukraine, a Ukrainian international NGO, rescued 6 more children from Russia-occupied territories. Kharkiv Governor Oblast Pushkin said on May the 14th. Over 19,500 children have been confirmed as abducted by Russia since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and less than 400 of them have been brought back home according to the Children of War database. The 6 children include 1 girl and 5 boys aged 5 to 12 according to Pushkin. Reportedly, they were at risk of being sent to so-called Russian health camps. Parents decided to leave the occupation. There were cases where children were taken away and not returned home, Proskin said. It was an extremely difficult rescue mission with delays at checkpoints and intimidation. The children were brought back home, received psychological and medical support, the governor had said. A total of 84 children have been brought back from Russia's occupied territory in Kharkiv Oblast since the beginning of 2024. Only 84, guys. Only 84. Russian attack against Ukraine killed 3 and injured 18 over the past day as well. Authorities reported today Russia targeted a total of 10 Ukrainian oblasts: Sumy, Moskovsk, Luhansk, Olgaz, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, Domorysk, Cherkasy, Kharkiv, and Kherson. Casualties were reported in the later 4 regions. In Kharkiv, 2 people, a 52-year-old man and a 66-year-old woman, reportedly suffered shock after Russian forces attacked the city with 2 guide bombs. 2 women aged 38 and 56 were injured, regional governor Olos had said. The attack reportedly damaged several residential buildings, garages and cars as well. Another one here. The US State Department does not anticipate Russian breakthrough towards Kharkiv, they've stated. So the US State Department does not anticipate any major breakthroughs by Russia towards Kharkiv, but Russia may take further advances in the coming weeks, the deputy spokesperson Velit Patel said during a brief press briefing on May the 13th. Russian troops launched a new wave of offensive actions on May the 10th, mainly focusing on the borderline settlements in Kharkiv Oblast. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces said early on May the 13th that Russia had tactical success in the Battle of Voskis, a town located 5 kilometers, 3 miles from the Russian border, around 50 kilometers northeast of the city of Kharkiv. Evacuations to civilians in the regions continue as Russian troops continue to advance in certain directions, Kharkiv Oblast Governor Oleshoskos said later on May the 13th. Patel told the press that the State Department anticipates that Russia will attempt to press forward with Kharkiv Oblast as well. It's possible that Russia will make further advances in the coming weeks, Patel said, but added that we do not anticipate any major breakthroughs. Over time, the additional influx of US assistance and continued support from partners will enable Ukraine to continue to withstand the kind of aggression. US President Joe Biden authorized £400 million military aid package. Yeah, I've done that in a shorts video if you want to know a bit more about that one there. But I won't add any more to that. You can check out the shorts video on that one, guys. Just seeing if there's anything else to add. It's a report here from the Financial Times. Moldova, EU to sign security pact here. So Moldova and the EU intend to sign the security pact in the next week, increasing cooperation speeds at defence, cyber threats and foreign influence to unprecedented levels, the Financial Times have reported. Relations between Tresco and Moscow have soured since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with fears that Russia's aggression may spill over via Transgornia and Moldovan territory where Russian troops have been stationed since the early 1990s. Tresco has also moved closer to Europe amid repeated warnings that the Kremlin is attempting to carry out destabilizing campaigns. Moldova and France signed bilateral defensive deals in March, days after Moldova's intelligence agency warned that Russia will seek to destabilize the country as it prepares for a presidential election and a referendum on EU membership. According to the EU's proposal seen by the FT, Moldova would increase its intelligence sharing, carry out joint military exercises, and be included in the blog's joint weapons procurement. While Moldova's constitution rules out NATO membership due to its neutrality clause, the pact would continue the deepest formal steps with its links to national defence and its western parts, the FT has said. Moldova would also be integrated into initiatives relating to the European defence industry and EU defence missions, according to the proposal. Current President Malas Sadu will run for re-election in October. Sadu has put the country on a decisively pro-EU course, helping to secure Tresco's membership candidacy and ascension talks. I'm just going to show you guys quickly as well. I'm not going to cover it too much because we're going quite long here. So this is the current This is the latest update. I'm not going to show too much, but the 13th of the 5th, 2024. This is just last night. This is the current state of affairs here. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit for you guys here. This is the current state of affairs here in the battlegrounds, battle lines at the moment. Obviously here I'm just going to show quickly here there's not been too much movement apart from Ivkovic. There's been a little bit of progress, but they're trying to make some pushes there, but they've been able to hold them. Obviously the main gains, the main pushes have obviously been taking place here, as you guys know, ever since they've taken the city of Avika. So if I just pull this back a little bit, we can see has there been too much movement. So as you can be a little bit of movement, but it looks like they've slowed down a little bit here according to this, but from the last reports. But yeah, they are still gaining little bits of ground here and around there, but hopefully Ukraine will be able to stop this at some point. Cross fingers they do anyway. Just have a quick look down at the bottom. There doesn't appear to be too much has changed here, although they are making these skirmishing engagements down here, but nothing too much there. And obviously, of course, nothing in terms of the Diamond River down here at the bottom here in Kherson. Obviously, there's always attacks coming across over the Kherson, over the Diamond River. That's happening there, but Ukraine are holding it pretty firm and strong there. So that's the current update with the war in Ukraine. I will give you guys an update if I can on the Snowflake Corner as well, guys. But that's quite a lot we covered today, haven't we, guys? Just on behalf of myself and the gang here, Ollie, Pingu, Cash Dummy, the Lava Lamp, and the Orb in all its glory. Why does it always do this whenever I turn away, or whenever I touch the orb or something? I literally touch the orb and it literally turns off. So there must be some kind of connection between the orb and the microphone here. So I can't touch the orb in all its glory then, otherwise it will turn off the mic, which is very, very weird, guys. But yeah, the gang wanted to say thank you guys for coming along today. Thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed or informative. I say enjoy, it's not the right word, sorry. I really shouldn't use that word, but let me take that word back. What did you guys think of some of the topics that we discussed today? Obviously, at the start, we talked about Trump and the Michael Cohen situation. The Chinese journalist in China hopefully will get freed at some point. The media on the war on Gaza and how it's represented in the US as well as around the world. We also had talked about what's happening in Georgia as well. Things about what's been occurring at Eurovision regarding the EU flag. We talked about the Spanish regional elections in Catalonia as well. Some fact checking as well in the Ukraine and what's been happening in the Ukraine war. What do you guys make of all these stories and more? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below what you thought of all of these. But just before you guys head out, I just have one more question for you. One more thing, if you guys can do before you go. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content there as well. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.